Hello and welcome to Dark Souls Q&A episode 3. My name is Mont or Alex. This video series is similar to the series I do, Dark Souls Lore, but there are topics now and then that come up that people in the community want to talk about, but perhaps don't really have enough meat behind the topic to make a good video on. For example, Falcon the Hexer is an interesting character, but I just don't think there's enough information to make a whole video on him. And so the idea for the Q&A was born. It also allows me to push out more videos more frequently, as these are far less time consuming to create due to, for one thing, not having to record any gameplay footage that then needs to be edited and so forth. So what are we going to talk about today? The Gaping Dragon, and then we'll have a look at Frampt and the Primordial Crystal, as an interesting theory was posted, and I feel it's well worth discussing. As usual, if you have your own theories, please do post them in the comments below, and likewise if you have any questions or topics that you'd like to see me cover in future videos, you can post those too. But let's start with the Gaping Dragon, shall we? It's one of the topics I've considered making a lore video for, but one that never did get made in the end. The nearest I got was my two-parter special on the dragons in general, but largely focusing on Seath and Calamite, it didn't have too much about Mr. Gapey. Oh my god, Mr. Gapey. I'm never saying that again, ever. So why does poor Gaping Dragon get no love? Is it because he's a terror born from a teenage boy's darkest nightmare? Or is it because he's a far cry from a true dragon? Who can say? But today he gets his 15 minutes of fame, or perhaps it's closer to 5 minutes in this case. Who or what is the Gaping Dragon? One of the most Dark Souls of bosses, in my opinion, and that is to say, if you remember what it was like in the months leading up to Dark Souls' release, he was featured quite heavily. He's not a spoiler-heavy boss, but his design is unique, it stands out, he's terrifying, he's monstrous, and his design well conveyed what sort of atmosphere you could expect in Dark Souls. I don't think a single article on Dark Souls was published without featuring Gaping Dragon in some form or another. So from a design perspective, the boss is important, even if his lore importance is less. From a story perspective, he has little relevance or importance. You could easily walk past Gaping Dragon and leave him be. Nobody in particular demands his death or even really mentions him, but he is a dragon all the same. Or at the very least, he resembles a dragon. There is precious little information regarding him in-game, but the Dragon King Great Axe remarks that he is a distant, deformed descendant of the everlasting dragons. And I must say, I do find that perhaps the most disgusting, twisted of dragons being the key to getting the Dragon King Great Axe is quite a coincidence in my eyes, or you can say it's irony if you prefer. But perhaps more than something to be feared, the Gaping Dragon is something to be pitied. The way it rears up during its introduction cinematic it's almost like a peacock, or some other proud creature displaying its power to you, even if all we really see is that gaping maw. Greed has transformed this dragon, it can no longer fly, but instead waddles along on its extra legs. Legs needed to support its heft. The desire and greed to consume everything in its path twisted this dragon into a sick caricature of what was once a king of monsters. And I suppose in a way, the greed is a little bit reminiscent of the Daughters of Manus who, well, as we know, they seem to be warped by their own wants and desires. But why is Gaping Dragon so greedy? What has caused his hunger? And I should point out that I'm calling Gaping Dragon a he just for ease of use, really. I still believe dragons don't really have much in the way of sex or gender or whatever, you know, what with being immortal. But it's strange, don't you think? An immortal creature surely has no need of sustenance and food. But then, Gaping isn't a true everlasting dragon, is he? He's a descendant of them. So has he gone from one extreme to the other? A dragon that needs no food, to a dragon that needs all the food? And what was possibly the reason behind his birth? The creation of dragons is a mystery with little clue. The stone dragon of Ash Lake appears to be in some form of nest, so perhaps that was where Gaping Dragon came from, and its hunger led it up to Blighttown. I do believe that's where he came from. When we fight him, he crawls up from the sewage, and that sewage is all flowing down to Blighttown. Who knows? Perhaps given enough time, Gaping Dragon would have eventually climbed all the way up to Anolondo. Was that the goal? To make him, like, eat Gwendolyn or something? Probably not. No doubt he was just led by his hunger, and let's face it, eating the blight parts is probably not the best idea. A theory I once had is that Gaping Dragon climbed up from near the bonfire at the bottom of Blighttown. Do you know the one I mean? If you run to the back, behind the bonfire, you'll find a circular chamber with a chest containing a dragon scale. And that chamber stretches far above your head if you look up. I mean, you can't even see the ceiling because it's all dark and stuff. It's a lot like the round chamber that's also the entrance to Blighttown. When you go to the door past Domhnall of Xena and you go down the ladder, that chamber is very reminiscent. I don't think it's the same chamber, but you know, it might actually be the same one, come to think of it. I don't think I've ever tried jumping down there. Well, who knows. Maybe that is where Gaping Dragon climbed up. Maybe that's why the sewer gate is all broken in too. And then there's Seath. Did he have a hand in all of this? I don't really think so, but people have pointed out that one of the channelers is observing the Gaping Dragon, and will be quite a nuisance if you attempt to fight the dragon without first dispatching it. And that is quite a good link, isn't it? The channelers have a strong association with Seath, who is a dragon, and one of the channelers just happens to be patrolling near the Gaping Dragon. So, could there be a hint of the albino dragon's experiments here? Is he attempting to create true immortal dragons again? Was Gaping Dragon a failure due to his unending hunger? It bears some thought, I suppose. In the end, I think he's a tragic character, a sad thing to be pitied, and of course, defeated. Maybe that would be the kindest fate, because surely at least in death, Gaping Dragon's hunger would be sated. Moving on to the second topic, we're still talking about dragons, kind of, so here's a comment that I found interesting. In order to defeat Seath, you must destroy the Primordial Crystal, which the Duke stole after turning against his kind. Does this crystal have any connection with Karth or Frampt? When offered crystalline? It occurs to me I don't actually know how to say that. Whatever. Frampt will always only repay you with a single soul. Is this because of the item's difficulty to repair or digest? Because they are abundant or worthless where they're from? Or is it simply because of Seath's association with these items and that Frampt holds a grudge against the albino for stealing such a powerful relic? Undoubtedly, these serpents have been around Lordran since the time of Ancients, but it was only during the Age of Fire that there became a difference between heat and cold, light and dark and so on. Is it possible that both Karth and Frampt once saw Seath as kindred? And how might this affect the relationship between these three? It's implied by the Kingseeker that he once knew Lord Gwyn while he remained the Lord of Sunlight. But just how well did they know one another? It's clear that Seath was the Great Lord's confidant, but why Seath? Why the Primordial Serpents? Perhaps he too could not trust them, and so on. Right, so this is an interesting topic, and no mistake. First up, I'm going to talk about my views on Karth, Frampt, Seath and Gwyn. We know that Gwyn trusted Seath, in so much as making him a duke, granting him wealth and resources, but whether or not he personally trusted Seath, it's impossible to know. Perhaps he did, perhaps he didn't, but he had to reward Seath for his actions assisting him against the dragons, because it really seems like Seath's betrayal is what helped Gwyn win that war. Frampt has little to say on Seath, only that he is Gwyn's former confidant, whereas Karth refers to him as the traitor. He also seems unimpressed by Frampt befriending Gwyn, which he thinks means Frampt has lost his sense. So here's my own little theory on the matter. Frampt's goals are his own. Perhaps he genuinely does think of Gwyn as a friend and respects him and wishes to further his desires. But Karth? I think Karth is working at the destruction of the Lords and the resurrection of the dragon. It is implied that Karth is the one who urged Ulasil to rouse Manus, and likewise that he manipulated the four kings of New Londo. Why? Well, to put it simply, I think we have a rock, paper, scissors situation. We have the Lords, humans, and dragons. The Lords, or gods, demigods, whatever, consisting of Gwyn, Artorias, and so forth. Then we have the humans, or pygmies, and finally the dragons. The Lords kill the dragons, humans kill the Lords, and the dragons kill the humans. I feel there is enough evidence to suggest the dragons are not affected by the dark, or the abyss, or anything like that, which is one of the reasons I believe in this theory to an extent. Whereas Gwyn and his kind are very much affected by the dark and the abyss. Just look at what happened to Artorias after he took a little dip in the darkness. So I believe Karth is attempting to aid the humans, but only because that ultimately works in his interests, to which I believe is the restoration of dragons. But that's just my opinion, wild speculation. As for the crystals, I don't believe there's too much of a link there. I think it's probably something that comes down to game design, but I also think the idea of them being harder to digest, or simply rather worthless, could hold true as well. I suppose it's a bit like scrapping a car. No matter what sort of state your car is in, it will always hold some value due to the core components within, the metal and plastic and leather and so forth. But crystal modification seems to drastically alter things to the point that not even one who understands how to work crystals can repair it. It was a pretty interesting thing to bring up though. The primordial crystal, once we destroyed it, was it unable to be repaired? Just like crystal weapons? Are they in fact the same sort of crystals? Probably related. Strange though. Crystal reinforcement makes weapons stronger, but brittle. Is that what the primordial crystal was doing as well? And that about does it for our talk on crystalline, damn it, crystals and stuff. So yeah, that about wraps it up for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and of course, if you have any theories or questions, post them down below so we can have a read. Until next time, take care and I will see you later. I am now going to go and Google crystalline, because it must be crystalline, I think. Maybe? Yeah, crystalline sounds weird. Crystalline. Whatever.